Hi, welcome to class. We're the only two right now, but the other ones will show up eventually, right? I hate my life. I hate my life. And Professor Sunrise Productions! Hello class, Professor Sunrise here. In today's class we are taking a look at Bystial Dragon Link, and I'm just gonna show you guys how I combo my hands out. Can you say that? So I'm gonna give you guys a quick combo tutorial of like the most bread and butter combos, and then most importantly I'm gonna give you a few tips and tricks to play around certain cards, what my priorities are when comboing. There's like one very big choke point where you can go into a whole lot of different cards with Dragon Ravine. So this is like probably the most interesting part of the combo. What you're gonna send with the Dragon Ravine can make or break a lot of games in my opinion. Other than that, most of the combos definitely still play around with what your opponent is doing on you, so don't take this for granted. A basic combo, you should definitely just know how the deck works. You should know where the priorities are. You should know what extra deck options you have with Forms of Dark and a Tomb, which like play very well into extended combos if your opponent decides to disrupt you. So you will always have to take these things into consideration as well when comboing off. But for now, I think like a very bread and butter combo tutorial and like a priority chart of what to do and what to put your resources in will definitely help you guys. So without further ado, don't forget to like and subscribe, leave some feedback down in the comment section below, and let's get right into the combo tutorial. So these are all the things which we need for the most basic combo. We only need these 6 extra deck slots. We only need these 6 extra deck slots, and most of the basic combos go with one way to get 2 dragons on the board. So most of the time this will be safer, Chaos Space, stuff like that, for 1 card, but you can also just use additional extenders and just 1 additional extender. And this time I will showcase the Rebellion because this is probably the most easy way to do it. But this is just the basic combo, so take that in mind. So we first start out with normal summoning Seyfried, using Seyfried effect, sending it, and search the Collapse Serpent. Now we can use the Magnamod, the Rebellion to search the Magnamod. Afterwards, we summon the Collapse Serpent, banishing the Seyfried. This is very important because we can just resummon this one later of the Pisty. So now we go into Striker Dragon, chaining 1 Striker, chaining 2 Collapse Serpent. This is very important to play around halfness as early as possible. You could bait them into a halfness if you wanted to, because we do have the Magnamod, but you'd rather just use it later. So now we summon the Wyver Burster, banish the Collapse Serpent, and you go into a Link 2, being the Romulus. Effect Romulus will be adding you the Dragon Ravine. Now you go for the Dragon Ravine. Pitch 1 of the additional cards in half you have. You would have 3, of course. So let's quickly get those. Pitch 1. And you send the Recharger. Effect Recharger will search you the Tracer. So now you have these 5 cards in hand. You would have, if the opponent would have had a halfness, they would have used it on the Romulus. So now that you can use the Magnamod basically for free, hoping that they don't have a halfness anymore. Banishing, at this point it doesn't really matter what you banish. I would banish the Absolute Router just in this case, effect Magnamod on field. Now you would go for the Rebellion, tributing off the Magnamod, and use Rebellion effect on field to activate a Regained out of the deck. I always go for the Regain just in case there comes a Bystial out. I can still get an additional extender with the Magnamod. But most importantly, I think it is just Branded Beast just doesn't do enough currently, especially if you don't have a Bystial on the board to immediately go for that. Just because the only real good target against the elements is the field spell, and if you don't have a Bystial on the board when they activate it, you cannot really use it. So Branded Beast is not really that clean at the moment, so I'd rather go for the guaranteed follow-up with Branded Regained, because the way this combo plays, it doesn't have any follow-up. If you have enough follow-up, you could argue to go for the Branded Beast, but for now, I think Regained is better. Now we get rid of the Dragon Ravine, go for Boot Sector Launch, summon the Tracer, effect Tracer, pop the Boot Sector Launch, to summon the Recharger out of the deck, and then it's pretty simple. We go into Pisty with those, we go into Triple Burst with those, effect Pisty, can resummon the Seyfried, and then we go into Borderland with those, effect Borderland, target the Recharger, to summon the Tracer, And then I go into Savage Dragon with those. Effect Savage, equip the Triple Burst. That is the basic combo. We can still use the Sacred and get into Rebellion. But that's basically it. So we do have some form of follow-up. I kind of lied there. But lots of times you will, of course, get disrupted. Rebellion will not always be there. So this is the safest form of follow-up we have. And in the end phase, of course, we are allowed to search for a Druze Worm. Would probably always get that just to have that additional form of disruption. My chair is very gnarly right now. I am sorry for that. So yeah, this is the end board. We have one Savage Negate. We have a Boral End. We have a Druze Worm to disrupt the opponent. We have two forms of follow-up with Regained and Rebellion. And we have two additional cards in hand. This might not seem like a lot, but Boral End is super hard to deal with for a lot of decks right now. And with this ludicrous amount of follow-up being a draw of Regained, probably a search with Magnum of the Regained summon, follow up with Rebellion, so we get to search with Magnum, we get to draw one, so that's two additional cards already. So next turn we would probably have 6 cards in our hand to play and just OTK the opponent afterwards. So this is pretty strong. So this is the most basic and bread and butter combo. 99% of the time you won't be able to do it just like this because there will be disruption flowing around, but you still have 2 additional bodies or ways to play through disruption with these cards. But it is very hard, of course, to showcase you guys how to think on the fly. So this is where the replay analysis are there. I'm just gonna revert back to a board state where most of the thinking will probably happen and where most of the lines will probably diverge into different stuff. So we'll be right back. So here we are back. We have resolved our Romulus and searched the Dragon Ravine. We've had the basic opener as well. We have the Magnum because we have Rebellion plus Sacred. We have basically the same setup we had before, but this just one difference. We have a Rocket Tracer in our hand, so we don't need to use the Ravine to search the Tracer. So what to use with your Ravine will probably depend on lots of stuff. I think the priority charge for me, at least if you want to go for full combo, is you first want to get your Rockets going. If you already have access to the Rockets, you want to get most of the Bystial stuff going. For example, in this case, we could use Dragon Ravine to send a Saronir. Saronir sent Regained. And if you think about what the endbot looked like, we could have could have activated the Branded Beast with the Rebellion, and that then get both Branded Beast and Regain on the field, because Branded Beast activate in end phase, activate Regain out of the graveyard. Or if we feel really fancy, I don't have the card currently, but it can be substituted quite easily. If we already have that, or we don't really feel like that is very necessary because Branded Beast is not good in the matchup, and we want to go very hard, we can send any of the big Chaos Dragons. So either this one, or most probably you would want to send a Chaos Dragon Leviathan. I don't have it right now. I would definitely 100% play it, like I said, in the deck profile, and I'm testing with it, and it comes off plenty of times, and I'm going to showcase you guys how to get this card out of the graveyard. It is quite easy in my opinion. So like I said, the priority, I will chart it off here in the video as well. Get the rocket engine going 99% of the time if you want to go for full board. Then get your Bystials going. If you don't think you need both of them to have them, or if you already have all of them. So I'm speaking of Branded Beast and Branded Regained. You definitely want to get a Chaos Ring into the graveyard if you have the Sacred. So my opinion, if you have Sacred, you probably should prioritize the sending Leviathan to the graveyard over getting both Branded Beast and Branded Regained, because Branded Regained is really all you need, especially if you hand loop the opponent. So how do we get there? So pretty standard. We use the Magnum as well. Banishing, let's say this is a Leviathan, by the way. We had to discard one for the Ravine, of course. We banish the, I think there should be a Striker Ring in here as well, right? Yeah, there should be a Striker Ring. We'll, by the way, keep the Striker Ring banished. Not banished because we can recycle it with Regained later, but more on that later on. So we use the Magnum effect on field. We then use the Rebellion. Effect Rebellion, activate Regained. Now we activate the Boot Sector launch. Effect Boot Sector launch, summon Tracer. Effect Tracer, pop the Boot Sector launch, summon Recharger. And then this is, like I said, the same combo. You link into Pisty, link into Triple Burst Dragon. Effect Triple Burst Dragon, in this case, will get back these Sacred. And now we can summon those off into Boral Dragon. Effect Boral Dragon, target the Rocket Recharger, summoning Tracer, and now we can link those off, or synchro those off, I should say, into Savage. Effect Savage, get the Triple Burst. We still have one card in hand. We have the Regained activated, and now we use the Sacred to get the honorary Leviathan Dragon And then we can summon it and banish 3 cards. I would probably banish a Striker Dragon at this point because you kind of have to, a Pisty, and then probably a Recharger, just because Tracer's just a little bit better. Maybe you want to banish a Tracer because you can theoretically still recycle that, but I think just going it like that is probably the best bet. You can actually, because we have the Regained up, you can just recycle the Recharger or the Striker Dragon at this point, depending on what you want to do. So you can hand loop your opponent for 1. In this scenario, you even get to draw 1 additional card, which is pretty good, and then you have the same basic board just with an additional hand loop, just because you've hard drawn the Rocket Tracer. So, like I said, the Dragon Reveal point is where the combo goes into a whole lot of different scenarios. To remember for you guys, get the Rocket Engine going. If you already have that and you don't have a Safer, get all of the Lubellion / Bystial stuff going. So send a Serenia, send Regained is pretty good. Or if you have a Serenia, send a Lubellion. Those are the 2 things. So you have all of them available to you. Or if you have Safer start, you can go for send, what's it called? Send Leviathan and go for a hand loop. You can even, if you have a Serenia in there and you can use Serenia to send Lubellion, you can send with Dragon Ravine, you can send a Safer, so you can add back the Lubellion and then you can search a Magnum. And this is also something which can happen. So at Dragon Ravine, you basically have 4 points of comboing off. So this is where most of the combos will diverge into different stuff depending on what you have. So you can fulfill all of the engines you have, the Chaos, the Bystial, and the Rocket Engine. At best, you will want to have all of them, but at minimum, you really want to get to 2 of those. And with Ravine, you're basically guaranteed to get to 2 of those. So I think this is the most important aspect of comboing off with this deck, just knowing the basic combo. Sometimes you might want to go for Seal plus Savage, but this is mostly if the situation asks for it and your hand is not really that good. So I won't be going over that in this video, but like I said, watch the replay analysis, watch my stream, link is in the description below if you want to get to know more of those. But yeah, other than that, you cheeky motherfuckers thought class was over. It is almost over. I just have a few tips and tricks to play around the most prevalent hand traps right now. First one, if you think the opponent will have a Bystial, if you need to get a Bystial on the board, you really want to go for that if you have no monsters on the field. So try to play out your combos mostly with Chaos Space. You have the ability to do that. But also if, for example, you're already in a grind game or your opponent has something on their board as well, you really want to start out with the Bystials if you need to get the Bystials on the board for your own gameplay. Contrary to that, if you think the opponent might have a Halfness, they have a tier element setup already going there, you really need to use the Bystials as a disruption on the opponent's play rather than your own extenders. So you really have to evaluate your Bystials in both of these scenarios all the time. Okay, do you need to Bystial very early on to extend your combo, or do you have or / can use your Bystial to stop the opponent's Halfness? Maybe you want to bait the Halfness very early with the Striker Dragon, or you want to use it on the Remedies. At this point, you basically have to use your Bystials. So might as well, because most of the time you'll have to use them as an extender then if you remember the combo. So hopefully at the Romulus point, you put that as chain link 2 if you can chain block it, just because you need to be able to get value of the Bystial. So if they start to Halfness you after you use your Bystial, you can kind of be screwed if the opponent just does the full combo afterwards in your turn. So you have to watch out for those 2 things with the Bystials. Adding to that, the Romulus part is very scary because Dragon Ravine is usually the play where you play into an opponent's Kelbeck, because Chaos Space is the one which sends from hand. Serenia is one which sends from deck, but this most of the time will also happen off Serenia. So be careful with Dragon Ravine plays, especially if you get Kelbeck on that, you usually will just go for Savage, Seal, Pass. But be wary of those, don't play into that. It happened to me a few times where Kelbeck usually doesn't really do a lot against our deck, but at this spot exactly it can be quite deadly. And other than that, I think basic hand traps are quite easy to play around. Usually they will go onto a Striker Dragon or something like that, so they're not really that hard to deal with. And even if they go on Pisty, most of the time you will still end on a Boral End, just not the Savage. So hope you guys can take something with those 3 quick trips here at the end. Sorry for not putting them in earlier, I kind of forgot about them, but this is the most things I can think of right now which are really happening. So using Bystials as either extenders or disruption against opponents' Halfness is very important in skill testing, and then just keeping in mind the Kelbeck interaction. Other than that, Nib is not really the format. I will do one a video on Nibiru, probably the next format when Nib becomes a little more popular, just because Kashtira does really hard lose against them. So until then, you will probably not have to fear a Nibiru just that much, but definitely keep it in mind. And if you have the ability to play around it, you should definitely do that. Now class is really dismissed. You guys are free to leave. Professor Sunrise out. Peace.